Hi everyone, welcome to our second launch video for the Paddock Pass podcast in the space of what, Neil, maybe 4 or 5 days?
Yeah, it's been a busy week.
Yeah, it's been a couple of trips to Italy, and now here we are in the sala that's breaking down here in Madonna di Campiglio for the launch of the 2025 Ducati Lenovo team. And I think we can see the riders just behind us. Certainly Pecco Bagnaia about to do some TV interviews, but Neil, first of all, let's tuck into what we've seen over the course of what was quite a long hour actually in Italian, quite a contrast to Aprilia. There was talk, of course, about this region, about the backing of Audi and how Audi are very much sort of implicated in this particular part of the world. But apart from seeing Marc Marquez in red for the first time, I have to say the bike livery really hasn't changed that much.
It hasn't, no. And Ducati were telling us that essentially this year it's going to be small evolutions rather than the revolution. I know that's a phrase that's trotted out a lot at this time of year, but really, how can you improve on a season when you've won 19 out of 20 races and 17 sprints out of 20 as well? Ducati's imperiousness at the top was just unprecedented last year. And I think Gigi Dall'Igna, the general manager of Ducati, of course, was taking a pretty pragmatic view. He was like saying, it's unrealistic for us to try and match those numbers again because it was so good last year. But what we can do is we can just try and make little improvements to the bike that we had last year. And we can do that by tweaking the chassis, tweaking a number of little different components, which I think they're going to do at Sepang. And he also said we have the two best riders on the grid. Jorge Martin will have been listening to that while I'm sure doing another couple of bicep curls in the gym, thinking like, there's my motivation for the year. But it is hard to argue with the fact that there's the two best riders on the grid in this team, and they're going to take some beating.
It was quite. There's a couple of very pointed things that popped out, to me during the presentation. And they had a celebration video of last year. Jorge Martin was barely there.
The world champion.
Yeah, which is strange considering that was the bike that still won, the genesis of which is still on the stage. And also there were some comments like harmony being one of the key elements of the year. And I thought the most outrageous comment by far was Marc Marquez saying it doesn't matter who wins as long as the team and the brand emerge triumphant, which I thought was perfect. PR babble.
Yeah, beautiful corporate speak, wasn't it? Yeah, but anyone that will have watched Marc Marquez on a racetrack for 5 seconds will know that is complete and utter tosh. And the objective for him very much is to take the number one plate. Mauro Grassilli, the sporting director of Ducati, who's taken over from Paolo Ciabatti, wishful thinking, you have to say, on his part, saying that things are going to be harmonious. I guess it has been harmonious so far, and after Portimao last year, there wasn't a great deal of niggle between Bagnaia and Marc. I think after the deal was announced, Marc was quite clever in how he navigated his way around Pecco. He was
delicate, wasn't he?
Very delicate, but there was also some little things where you thought like, okay, he's maybe playing some mind games here, trying to test Pecco and see how he reacts. He's working on him, I would say. But so far it has been harmonious. But then, of course, this is the 20th of January, and I think we're far more inclined to see, or we will be more inclined to see exactly the dynamics of the garage after race 1, race 2, or race 3.
Bagnaia is so embedded in that team. You'd imagine that inside the garage itself, pretty much until there's a flashpoint on the track, then there is going to be a decent amount of harmony because Marquez is smart in the way that he goes about things. I don't think you'll see the team suddenly throwing up a wall between the riders unless there's some serious on-track clashes happening and things get a bit fiery. But at the moment it is just like a nice calm sea, and you're just waiting for some sort of dark cloud to blow in from somewhere. Yeah, and
it's going to take long. You have to imagine it's not going to take long. But yeah, I think Marc is obviously a very intelligent figure, and he knows how to. Well, you think he'll have a decent idea of how he's going to play this, and at the moment it is to try and be that team player and to be nice and to be helpful, and during the test to probably try and work together with Pecco to take things forward. We know that he's obviously worked against a teammate in the past. He's admitted that. He did that with Dani Pedrosa when he was a Repsol Honda rider in years gone by, where he actually thought about choosing worse parts for the bike just because Danny liked them and he was trying to upset his equilibrium somewhat. I think at this stage of his relationship with Ducati and at this stage of his relationship with the Ducati factory team, he won't be doing that kind of thing. But yeah, it's just going to be box office viewing. You have to imagine just seeing the two of them together and how they react whenever they are up front, because despite the fact that Martin's at Aprilia, and Acosta's at KTM, both of those situations have so many question marks around them. Pecco did say that this is going to be the championship fight here, me and Marc, and maybe some other names will come into it at some point. But for the time being, yeah, you can't really argue with them.
A few years ago, you and I were in Madrid for the launch of the Repsol Honda team when Jorge Lorenzo drafted in next to Marc Marquez, and we were like, wow, just look at the collection of championships and skill, achievement, everything that was apparent on that stage. It was quite, awe-inspiring, I have to say. Do you get more of a powerful feeling here, just considering that the bike and the team, of course Repsol Honda have an amazing history in MotoGP, but do you think, this Ducati presentation was maybe a level above what we saw with the Honda guys?
Yeah, I mean, it was difficult to know at that particular time when we were in Madrid that Lorenzo was going to have the worst season of his life and would retire at the end of it.
Yeah. Well, he had a broken wrist when he made the presentation.
He did.
He had a cast on his wrist, so you kind of think, well...
Okay, yeah. So there was that. He was going into the season with a broken scaphoid, I think, which is just a terrible way to prepare for your first season on a very, very difficult bike. Whereas Marc already has a full year of experience under his belt with Ducati, and he's stepping up from, a satellite team, essentially Ducati's third satellite team, into the factory team, the team that has dominated over the last couple of years. So yeah, I think this is, head and shoulders going to outdo what we saw in 2019, and obviously, Lorenzo was quite unlucky in that particular occasion. But yeah, I think all the hype this year really is founded.
I was talking with some colleagues in the press conference room because the riders did the presentation with the team and then talked to the media for a while. And this thing's going to kick off right from Sepang. I mean, Sepang's one of Pecco's most effective tracks, one of his most successful ones. And then you have, Marc, where it's slightly weaker, that circuit. But then if Marquez emerges from the test quicker, looking better, more comfortable, then that's already a big statement. I think it's going to go feed right into a 22 race championship. Yeah,
it will be interesting to see who comes away from Sepang. Marc in his most successful years hasn't always been the kind of the king of testing. He's preferred to do his work almost, not behind closed doors, but
there's no big statement lap time.
There's no big statement lap time. He doesn't feel like he has to go out and end the day fastest, let's say. So it'll be interesting to see if that will have changed. I mean, he was ridiculously competitive at Sepang a couple of months ago on a GP23, staying pretty much with Jorge and Pecco at the start of that race before he crashed out at the final turn. So some of Marc's more difficult tracks in years gone by, he proved last year that he was able to perform at the highest level at them. So yeah, it's interesting. But I keep on saying this to myself, on paper, it's going to be very, very difficult to beat Marc. But any occasion that Pecco has had where he's had to rise to a challenge in years gone by, he generally has managed to do that. So I have confidence in the number 63 now in stepping up and maybe not beating Marc over a season, but matching him at least.
Lastly, Neil, I mean, you mentioned the bike. On the stage, we can see behind us GP24s, but then, Gigi Dall'Inga saying there are some modifications. And then when we get to Sepang for the first test, there'll be a new swing arm, a new chassis, and new fairing, I think.
Quite a boldly different new fairing from what we gather, and lots of minor component changes as well. You have to imagine there's going to be maybe another new engine. We saw a new engine, I think, in Barcelona at the one-day test after the race. But doesn't look as though it's going to be a huge step forward from what we saw last year when the GP24 was not radically different from the 23, but definitely was a big step ahead.
Yeah, I mean, from this kind of presentation, you just get this air of sort of, this is a formidable team, and they're going to be going into it not only with the strongest lineup they've ever had, but also with all that experience and championships behind them. It is really, I mean, when we were in the Aprilia launch, I thought, here's a team with a lot of potential, a lot of mystery as well. But then, these guys are going to be the reference on the grid this year.
The benchmark, And just one final thing, I think it's worth adding. I actually thought the team presentation was really interesting today because they really started to talk up their partnership with Lenovo. Obviously, computer providers for much of the world have been working with Ducati since 2018, and Lenovo's AI systems have been one of the reasons why Ducati have been so effective in basically being able to turn weekends around on a sixpence. There's been so many occasions in the last couple of years when we've seen them struggling a lot on the Friday, and then it seems as though the engineers go away and they come back on a Saturday and they're transformed. They're completely like new packages and they're all competitive. And all of the Ducati management, as well as Lenovo, were talking up this AI system that they use where they're able to basically throw in so much data and have it analysed by AI tools kind of at the click of a finger. And that has proved to be ridiculously effective in terms of getting through all the mountains of data that they have and being able to come up with new sort of settings and setups, which proved to be very effective for the race. So yeah, I think Matt Oxley wrote about this in his motorsport column just before Christmas, and yeah, the guys were talking about it today. So AI now is becoming a massive tool in how to drive MotoGP development forward.
Yeah.
They also said something about using a tool with which they measure the track.
Track scanning. Yeah.
Track scanning, being able to understand where the bumps are, where the grip can potentially be different to other parts of the track. Again, another tool which you know is a reason I think behind Ducati's success.
Used for simulation, of course, which speeds everything up. And like you pointed out, you know, they have been able to turn things around very quickly. I mean, Lenovo management or representatives here said, you know, they're downloading like 100 gigabyte from each bike each weekend, and you know, from more than 50 sensors on the Desmos Adichie. So there's a lot of churning going on, and it does seem that AI is the, you know, the burgeoning form of technology in MotoGP at the moment. But Pecco Bagnaia in the press conference just said, you know, it's still 70-30 in favour of the rider, and I think it was Claudio Domenicali as well, the CEO of Ducati, who said, you know, the rider is first. You know, we have to make sure we make decisions based on what the rider wants. So
it's maybe more 55-45 nowadays than 70-30, but yeah.
Anyway.
By the way, did we match okay?
Yeah, we didn't synchronise really in our choice of sweater this morning, did we? But yeah, I know. Apologies, viewers. What can we do?
Yeah, something to learn for the next one.
Try to be a bit more professional. So that's pretty much it for team presentations, I think, because we've got the Japanese are doing theirs in a far-flung corner of the world, Indonesia and Malaysia, and then Red Bull KTM will be online. So we'll just have to maybe offer some more video content when the teams have been announced. In the meantime, thanks for watching.